Hello and welcome. I'm Brian Watkins here at the Beautio in lovely Buda, Texas, south of Austin, at ProFor. Joined today by acclaimed cinematographer Todd McMullen, longtime friend and collaborator, and we're going to be discussing all things film and industry related with somebody that actually knows it at the top of our food chain ecosystem. So, Todd, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You bet. So, you and I have been knowing each other for a while. I think for our audience, can you give us the 50,000-foot view kind of your history, background, and how you came to be sitting here with us today at the Beautio?
Well, I came to be sitting here through my car, but professionally, you couldn't resist, right?
No, that's good shit. I expect nothing less.
Hey, you got to dive in when you can. Well, I've always been into photography, as well as music. So growing up, I was able at a time to maybe get lucky, be in the right place at the right time, but I always had a motivation for creating something, whether that was taking a picture and then seeing what I could do with it, or what kind of emotional value it had, or whatever, however it was going to play out after I took the picture, to just listening to music. So I got involved at a communications corporation in Sacramento. I was a gopher. I worked for they had 2 radio stations. They had a magazine and they had a recording studio. So I got in there, I did a little bit of everything, which was great because during the day I'd run errands for the magazine, picking up ads and, doing that kind of thing. And at night, sometimes I'd go into the radio station, and then really late at night, I'd go into the recording studio. And I'd either, set up microphones or just sit there and watch what was going on or make runs or whatever it was. So all of these things that I was really into was in one package. So I was in the recording studio one night. Somehow I got all the late sessions to go to because that was the cheapest for everybody. But I was in there, and there was a group doing a sound for a commercial. And these guys shot 35 millimeter film. They had a BL2, and they were really cool people. So I got to talking to the director, Randy, and we were just talking shit and everything. And he says, well, we need some people to come out, be a grip, whatever, lug some sandbags, whatever it may be. So I said, sure. So I came out one day, and they were doing, it might have been a political commercial, I'm not even sure, but they did a lot of cool commercials on film. They were like the elevated production company of Sacramento. So I went out, fell in love with it, and got into it that side. And that's when I started seeing the camera and the camera assistant and the DP working with that camera. And I was just enthralled by it. It was like, oh, that's the place I want to be. I want my hands on film. I want my hands in this camera, all these things. So I just, went and worked when I could, did whatever I could. And at that time, UCLA had an extension course through their film department through Aeroflex. And Aeroflex was teaching Fridays at like 3, it was like 3 in the afternoon to like 6 or 7 at Aeroflex in Burbank. So I lived in Sacramento. Now, I would drive every Friday afternoon, it was like 6 hours, drive straight there for that course. And a lot of times I'd come back or I'd just stay depending on what I had to do on that Saturday or that weekend. So anyway, I got my hands on the camera, loading film, learning how to pull movements, all that fun stuff. And then I knew that's where I wanted to be. And at that point, I'd kind of graduated college. So I was like, well, I'm just going to move to LA. So I moved to LA, started hitting up all the rental houses, went to Panavision ad nauseum, there all the time, bugging people. They got tired of me. But finally, I met some guys that liked my humor, my sensibility, whatever the hell it was. And then they started bringing me out to jobs. And that's how I kind of got in. And I started learning from these guys. And I was very attentive. I didn't come in knowing anything. I didn't want to know anything. I wanted to be a fly on the wall, but still be a good person to be around. So I was patient, but I was also, if I was asked to do something, I would do it. No shit, I'll do whatever you want. Let's do it. Had that great attitude. So that's kind of started. One of my big first shows was Bram Stoker's Dracula, Coppola. We shot out at, I believe it was over at the Fox stages on the west side. Stage 15 was one of the big scenes I first started with because they had multiple cameras. And I think it was like on D camera or something. And they had the big chase with Dracula and the horses and the carriage. That was all done on a stage 15. Maybe it was at Sony. But anyway, long story short, so once you get your name in there, oh, you worked on that, then it turned into, I got a call to go do B camera on Casino, the Scorsese movie in Vegas. They said, hey, we just need you for a couple days. I said, great. I ended up being there 110 days. I never left. And that was just amazing. Because at that time, it was like I was young, I was stupid, I live anywhere, do anything to work on a show like that. So once I got that going, then I just started meeting people. Then you start building your resume, and you start building your the kind of person you were. What were you? Somebody they like to work with, not to work with? Did you have attitudes? Whatever it may be. Did you stink? Did you smoke? Whatever it was. I just had the right sensibilities and started there. Just started going nuts. So that's how I kind of started.
How was it you came to find yourself in Texas and Austin? What brought you down here?
That's a great question. So we were living in the West Side in Venice. I'd lived there ever since I moved to LA, always on the West Side. And it's kind of a stupid reason, but I hated traveling down. There's a Lincoln Boulevard's a big road there that gets you from freeway out of the marina to the freeway to the 10 and off to where you need to go. That was always busy, and I hated doing that drive. But at that time, we were working all over. Heather and I, we were working all over the country. So we were kind of from small towns anyway. We said, we like it here. Our friends are here, great restaurants, all that, great weather. But we're not spending a lot of time here. And when we are here, we're spending a lot of time in the car. And we're driving everywhere. I mean, if you had a shootout in Santa Clarita and you lived in Venice, that's, you got to plan that trip. So it just came to the point where we're like, hey, we had worked here before. I did Miscongeniality. I was on an additional camera. And then I think I did another show with Tommy Lee Jones, Man of the House, which I think was originally called Cheer Up. So we had spent some time here before. I knew it, knew the place, got to know a bunch of people, a bunch of crew, and really enjoyed the town at that time. And so we said, hey, let's think about moving out there. So we came out, researched it. As soon as we landed, we ended up buying a house in Clarksville, and that's how we landed here.
So you're well known for your established role in Friday Night Lights, right? That's kind of how I came to know you. Talk a little bit about the evolution, how that started, and what it meant being in that ecosystem in Austin at that time.
Yeah, well, professionally, that was a major turning point for myself, because I had experience doing a lot of other things from other places, and I came here, and when we got hired for that, I kind of had a good position because I had most of the experience for what they were looking for. So I guess my point is I was in the right place at the right time. Yeah. And what was cool about that was it was Pete Berg. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know much about Pete or anything other than they did the movie. But I liked being able to do a TV series where I was living. So it was at home. I could go home. And so that was really cool because I got hired as the A operator, and it was a 3-camera show. And so it was kind of funny little moment there. We're all waiting, doing something in a gym, and Pete was there. We're all waiting for maybe an actor or something. And he turns to us, and Heather was an operator, and Shane Kelly was the other operator who Shane now shoots for Rick Linklater. So he looks at all of us, and he's kind of like, you guys ever done handheld before? We look at each other and go, yeah, we're operators. It's like, but I think his handheld was different than maybe other handheld that he had experienced. Because I think on the movie, they did a lot of handheld, but with big zoom lenses, and they'd put them on softballs on a tripod and, just try. It wasn't really handheld. It was like trying to hold those things and balance them. But yeah, back to that. It was a great time to be there. We were very efficient on that show. The cast was young, no attitudes. Everybody was in it to win it. And we were just a machine that went and we blew out the rules of every kind of filmmaking. We one of the funny little stories when we did a scene, and it was Connie and two of the other kid actors, and maybe Kyle was in it, Chandler, who played Coach. We were in a small room. It was a real room at a school. It was Tammy's office, and we had 3 cameras in the corners, all handheld. And with that, at that time, you had assistants. So we had 3 cameras, 3 assistants, and a boom guy, all in a small room jammed in there. So Connie's at her desk. The other 2 people are sitting across. Then Kyle walks in to say something. He walks in, he looks around and goes, what the hell's happening here? You know, because there were so many people. And we all just started laughing. We cut and we just laughed for about 3 minutes because it was so absurd that you're trying to get 3 cameras in a room like that and these guys are trying to act. It was just nuts. So that kind of broke the ice, and from then on we knew we had something and we weren't going to break that. So we kept that machine going with 3 cameras everywhere. I had 3 cameras in small bathrooms sometimes. Wherever you could fit a camera, we had a camera. But what that lent to was really good storytelling, because it was kind of like a documentary, but it just had so many, you know, you'd cross the line, you'd have bad shots, you'd have out of focus shots, you'd have somebody zooming in tight to miss the other camera. So it gave it such a heartfelt aesthetic that it was something like you'd never seen before. You know, it was not planned out. It wasn't, so perfect that you're just kind of bored by it. It was always something cool happening.
Do you feel like you got to imprint on the look of that show? Does that show kind of reflect the Todd McMullen style? I think a lot of people might, identify kind of that cool, voyeuristic, very organic look, with you. Do you feel like you got to imprint on that?
Yeah, I mean, that style was kind of started by David Boyd, the DP, and Pete, but we all were part of it. We had to be, or it wasn't going to work. So yeah, I mean, and we also became better at it as time went on, because we learned a lot of things we could do better and more efficiently and not waste a lot more time figuring out where the cameras go. So yeah, we perfected it, and that, I think, was a bit of my style, which I still enjoy, but it was also more of my philosophy. It's like, if you're going to do a medical show or something and you need perfection, you need everything to be perfect, laid out, everybody at the right, mark, everybody looking the right way, everybody, saying the right lines, and every line's got to be a camera. Well, that's one thing. But my aesthetic, sometimes, if you want a more emotional storytelling, you don't need a lot of that. So sometimes you got to throw that shit out. And you got to say, don't worry about it. We kind of got this, and, oh, well, we didn't get that line. Well, you don't need that line, So once, that was kind of how I thought about a lot of that afterwards is, just get to the meat and potatoes, forget the fluff. So I think that helped me, basically craft my style so that if anybody wanted a style like that, I had no problem doing it.
Right. And was that a conduit for you to transition into directing? Because you did some directing on Friday Night Lights, right?
Yeah, I did. I did one episode. I was supposed to do a couple more, but they gave them to some of the actors, which was the right thing to do. But in general, in television production, narrative form, styles are established. And so the directors that come in, they're usually told, you're not changing the style of the show. So in a way we knew what we were doing. So it was already a machine in a way that style was already there. So the directing part of it for me came because I knew the show and I knew how to get everything we needed without, doing more or less or, spending more time doing it.
No, it definitely does. So you were, a camera operator principally, because that show went on for quite
5 seasons.
Yeah, 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So when did you assume the DP role? Would it have been, right after that, or had you already, been DPing some other stuff?
No, DPing other stuff, but on that show what happened is David Boyd, who was the original DP. They gave him 2 episodes to direct in season 1. So when he directed those, I bumped up. So when I bumped up, then I became the DP. And then the next season, he went away. And since I knew the show, I just, stepped into it. And the showrunner, Jeffrey Reiner, gave me the chance to do that. And, we knew the show and I knew how to shoot it. And so that made sense.
If you had to describe your aesthetic as a DP, in a sentence, what would that look like?
Well, that'd be a long sentence.
It can be as long as you want, man. We've got plenty of tape.
No, I mean, I think for me, it's just simplicity. If you can get away with one light or no light, if you can walk into an environment that you've scouted and looked at and you've got one great window sending in one great light for what you need it for, that's all you need. I mean, for me, it's more shaping the light. So, sometimes you come into a place and you got a beautiful sunlight. It just looks gorgeous. I might take some negative fill on the other side and make sure that it's not bouncing all around. So I have some modeling. So, I have some dark and light space. But to answer your question, it's just simplicity. Try not to overdo it, and use less tools. And for me, is you get more out of it, if that makes sense. So it's just keeping it simple and keeping it efficient.
So dovetailing on that, is there a creative risk that you have taken in that space that's really paid off, for you?
One thing I've learned in my experience is I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to fail. And I don't care how much is riding on shots or days or this. If I feel I want to try something and they let me, I'm going to do it. I did a show called Prime Suspect years and years ago. I did the pilot, I believe. And we were shooting in a location, real location, and I just had a very little bit of light, and it was an alley light, a real alley light in New York coming through. And it was really warm, beautiful light, but it was really low light. I mean, you barely could see it. And so I shot that thing. I think I bumped my ASA up to I think we were using maybe an Alexa, early Alexa or something. And maybe it wasn't even Alexa. But anyway, it was a digital camera. And I bumped my ASA up to, I think it had to have been like 4,000 or 5,000, as high as I could get it. And it looked as grainy and raw and crazy as you could possibly get. Because Maria Bello was in the bathroom. The guy was in the foreground on a bed, and you could just barely see her. But what you could see was really cool. So everybody's kind of saying, is there enough light? Here's enough light. And I said, oh, it's going to be great. So I knew I had a little bit later to work with in post. But we shot that scene, and no kidding, I went home that night. I kept thinking, that might have been a little too low. And I was thinking about, but you know what? It's going to work out. So next day, the local color guy or the post guy says, hey, well, I checked in with them because I obviously was a little concerned about it. But I said, no, shit looks beautiful. We like that look. Keep it up. So it was like, okay, let's push the boundaries here. And, let's not be afraid to fail, because you might fail, but at least you're going to look good failing as opposed to not trying it, so.
Right. So which collaboration in your career has maybe most influenced or changed your approach towards storytelling? Is there something specifically you can point to that was like an inflection point in your career that was like, you know what, this is really going to change my trajectory?
You mean for just the way I worked? Or?
Yeah. I mean, in the way you approach, your craft and storytelling at large. Whether you're in a director role or in a DP role.
Yeah. Let's see. That's a great question. I think for myself, it would have been when I got hired to do the Newsroom, and the reason is because they hired me because of the Friday Night Lights style. But the difference in that was, they wanted to do, full pages at one time with multiple cameras. So Sorkin's writing was never a page. It was 8 pages. Right. So you had to go on set, and we'd always have 3 cameras, maybe 4, depending. And we had these great sets. But we would try to cover 8 pages, in 1 or 2 setups. We'd always going close, start a little wider. But the point was, instead of dissecting it, we never had time to dissect it. And okay, we're going to do this sentence with this guy. Then we're going to turn around and do their sentence. Then we're going to go move it. they wanted everything covered like a play. And I love that because I already had a feeling for that with Friday Night Lights. I knew where to put cameras and how to move cameras. But on that show, we were not handheld. We were loose, but was great because you could do the Friday Night Lights style, but on dollies and keep moving. So you could set a really nice shot that's going to go over here, follow that guy over here, then it feeds off to that person. This camera gets that person. They walk through the door. That camera's already getting that person. So we could set it up in a really cool stage, kind of a play atmosphere and design it that way. So, you know, if somebody did do 8 pages all in once, you just go in for a few close-ups and you've got it, instead of spending, you know, a week on 8 pages of dialogue, which a lot of shows would do. Right. So that was a turning point because I realized I could do that. The big problem was, well, it wasn't a problem, it was a big challenge, is a lot of the directors don't know how to direct like that. They have no idea. They are just into like, I want to do this, you know, I want it over, then I want to clean, then I want to reverse, then I want a side shot, then I want to what, you know, they don't know how to do that. They just don't. So that was part of why I was there, was to help educate them on how we can do this. Because I had a lot of times where some directors go, hey, I'm running behind. How do we do this?
Right.
I said, well, let's try this. And it would work out and we get it. And they go, oh, that was fantastic.
So following up on that point, do you feel like the directors that you were working with specifically in that newsroom ecosystem, because I love that show, you know, and Aaron Sorkin, I mean, what a genius.
Some of my favorite television ever.
It's just really remarkable stuff, right? And so do you feel like the directors were either receptive or solicitous of your opinion as a crafts person, you know, somebody who's really, you know, putting these shots together, or were they so siloed and inflexible as to, you know, say, hey, just execute this? Did you find the collaboration with the directors you were working with in that space to be receptive?
Yeah, I think for the most part, but that you know, depended on the director, and that in itself is a whole nother story of the dark side of, you know, episodic TV and directors. You get some directors, you don't want to listen to anything. They know it all, and they don't want to hear what you got to say, till they get in trouble, you know, with time or whatever. So it just depended. I mean, and it's also, you know, that show was kind of elevated, HBO, great actors, great writer. So they theoretically bringing in, you know, more seasoned directors. Yeah. And some of them were very cool, and some of them just weren't. You know, you can tell a director, and that was part of why part of my success is also is I go into these jobs, and like when I first meet a director, I don't say anything. I just say, hey, how you doing? You know, I listen to them, kind of feel like what kind of person are they going to be, you know, first, because I'm not going to, you go scouting with somebody on the first day and they're not sure what they want, but I can't jump in and start saying, what if we do this? Because they're just going to say, no, I don't want to do that, because they haven't thought about it. So you got to get people time to do it. So I've always let people go until they need help, then they'll come and we'll talk about it. But, you know, like on Newsroom, we'd have, most of the directors are great, but then you could tell some of the directors go, you know, hey, maybe can you just scoot over to the cast, you know, like to Jeff, they go, hey, can you just scoot over maybe an inch? No, that's not cool. Go back another inch. And you're going, really? It's an inch, you know? So you get to learn these people's habits, and you don't get in their way because they're already in their own way.
Right.
So just let them go. But get back to the original question. Yeah, that show was great for me because I could also play around a little bit more with, you know, lighting and trying to find creative places to put lights, because when you're moving like that and different types of lights, you know, whether even a practical, you'd set something there and go, well, we see that. They see that light and they go, yeah, but it looks real, right? Yeah, no problem. We'll leave it. So, I mean, that kind of thing was very cool.
Right on.
Just, it was basically like an adventure. You know, how are you going to make this work with what you have? Yeah.
Right. Did that show parlay into Leftovers? Was there a connection there? Because that was also an HBO show, right? I mean, we can't go through every single show you've done. My God, we'd take a whole.
I think that was from Pete, though. Just working with Pete Berg, because Pete was the director, showrunner on that show.
Okay.
So I think that was the connection, because he, you know, Pete's style, he liked what we did on Friday Night Lights. That's always been his style.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
Yeah.
Pivoting into, you know, the state of the industry and whatnot. What is it you think about production today, kind of where we are versus, where we were even 10 years ago? The evolution over the last, decade of production, kind of compare and contrast what that looks like.
Well, I don't know. That's a there's so many tributaries to that question because it's money, money, equipment changes, studio changes, there's so many different facets to that question.
Yeah.
But I do think that the strikes didn't help much.
Yeah.
COVID, I don't know, I don't know if that helped or hurt, but I think the bottom line is we still need good programming. We still need good stories. Those are out there and they're going to figure out how to tell those, where to show those. And that's still evolving. It's not going to go away by any means. So I don't know, but I will say maybe like you, I've seen some pretty crazy stories being told now. Yeah. A lot of things are based off of video games and there's some pretty crazy, nutty stuff out there. Yeah. So I don't know if we go back to traditional stories or we're just plucking off of books and games and stuff that, they think people want to see. I don't know.
To that point, how do you see the general state of the industry right now?
Well, for me, it's been great. I mean, I've been busy as hell.
Yeah.
But, for a lot of people, it hasn't been. So that's not cool. So I don't really know, I don't know with all the shakeups and stuff going on. And certainly people are they're either trying to make a point about something or they're trying to get the most for their money. Because there's a lot of stuff going overseas. I did a show up in Canada and they got a great dollar value up there. So everybody's trying to obviously get more for their buck. But is that because the people up here are really greedy because they're making money? Or is it because they're really trying to save money? I don't know. I really don't know. Right. But I know it's in transition and I know it's going to pick up soon again. I don't think it'll ever be like it was, 10 years ago.
What do you think is the biggest misconception that clients and producers have about what it takes to make high-level content, right? Is there a misconception out there about what it takes to actually do it at a high level?
Boy, I don't know. That's a good question. But what I do think, a lot of the shows I've been on, and I'm going to say probably the last at least 4 or 5, we've never gone into it with all the scripts together. There's a couple scripts to start. Then after that, there's usually either nothing, they're rewriting them, or they're changing them, or they just were never there. Yeah. It's almost like, you come up with a great line for a song. Oh, that's a great line.
Yeah.
Well, now you got to figure out the song, so they come up probably with a great title and then they start getting everybody excited about it. And then they start putting it into production and go, wait a minute, we haven't written a script, but we got a great fucking title, Yeah. So, and then they wing it and, but there's so many layers and so many people that look at this, now, because one of the things I will say I think is interesting, good or bad, take it how you want it. Most of the cast now are executive producers. You see all the actors in there. Shit, every one of them that's a lead is an executive producer. So what does that mean? Well, it means they want to say so and everything. So a lot of them might, get a script and they go, oh, I don't really like that. I don't want to say that. Now it's got to go through that script change. Then somebody else gets to go, no, that's not where the story's going. It's got to go here. And then, it filters down. And by that time, you don't have a script to shoot because everybody's weighing in on it, So I think the bottom line of that, the way I see it is sometimes people, they want to do the best work they can, get the best story, but they're afraid to really commit and just say, hey, here's what we're going to shoot. Here's how we're going to shoot it. This is the story we're telling. Let's leave it up to the audience to see what they think. I think they're just trying to predict it, what the audience is going to do, and they just, figure out in the script they don't like that. That's not going to work. I don't really know, but I have noticed that, and it's interesting. It's an interesting way to work.
Do you feel like maybe that hamstrings productions in some ways? Because, obviously having that process that you just took us through is maybe not
100%.
Yeah, not efficient. Yeah. What's the driver behind that particular thing? Is it just the fact that, hey, if you want to attach, my name in this, as a principal, then I need to be an EP, as well? Is it something coming from the agent? What's driving this? Because I have seen that in the title sequences of a lot of shows I watch.
Yeah, I think what's driving it, and I'm going to be perfectly blunt here, and I'm not going to get anybody in trouble, but I think it's just the style of writing these days. Some of the stuff I've read really is way de-elevated.
Right.
It's not very interesting.
Right.
And they're saying shit just to say shit and to just maybe try to move the storyline across. So here's this is actually a really funny story. I was on Tulsa King season 3, and this was last year, and we're sitting there, we're waiting for a setup, waiting for all the actors to come in and all this. And I noticed Sly comes in, and he's the king of filmmaking. I mean, he's gone through it all. He knows what should be presented. He knows how to present it. I mean, he's a good storyteller. So I see him, and I'm standing with the AD, and we're just kind of talking, waiting. And we see him looking at the sides, and whether he had already read the script or not, I don't know. But he's looking at the sides, and one of the greatest lines I've ever heard. He goes, "Well, this isn't writing. This is just typing." We were like, that's exactly it. It was just somebody typing something.
Yeah.
It wasn't even writing, And we laughed so hard at that, and because it really just made sense.
Yeah.
Now whether that's just typing to him or the showrunner or whoever, I don't know the interpretation, but it was a funny moment that when I read scripts also, I look at it and go, well, that's kind of, that's intelligent. That's how people would speak. That makes sense. And then you're in it. But sometimes you go, why would they even say that? We already know that. Right. It's like guy holding the candy bar. Hey, I'm holding a candy bar. That why would you, what I mean? So I think there's a lot of that in scripts these days, and writing and setting up shows, and just getting the right people to write it and the right people to accept it and say, yeah, let's do this. It makes sense.
Well, and to that point, you having had the benefit of getting to work with the Hollywood Jesus, Aaron Sorkin, arguably the best writer, on the short list of best writers of all time, gives you unique perspective in knowing how to translate the written word, onto the screen, right? So this is not one of the questions that I had, but when you're reading what's being written and you're looking at the sides or at the script, do you know, like, for example, we're both musicians, and people are always asked, when you're recording, More Than a Feeling or Stairway to Heaven, do you know it's a hit, right? Is that the same thing when you look at a script on the written page and you're like, oh, this is so good, I can't screw this up? Do you know it's a hit on the page before you begin to shoot it? And do you treat it any differently if it is a hit versus a flop? I mean, in other words,
not really.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell. I'm I don't have a magic carpet to figure all that out. But what I do, when I go through a script, I first read it, see if it makes sense, and I'll read it again, see what some of the scene headings are, locations, night, whatever. Then I start playing some visual stuff. But what I will say, when I do read scripts, I can read something, go, that's emotional. I can relate to that,
right?
As opposed to something that's just stupid. That's just plain freaking stupid.
No, it's flat.
And it's totally flat, and it's not, it's just, why is it here? So for me, I try not to ask so many questions of why is it there, because then you're always asking why the hell is it there. But I'll read something, go, yeah, that's a great scene. That scene lands. Right. So you can tell, like Sorkin, he's such a train of thought writer, and he just writes things in trains of thought. So some of that stuff, you don't know where it's going to go, but it means something because it's not dissected into just trying to catch a moment. It's a lot of moments, with that character. And it's funny because the whole Sorkin thing about him changing words and actors changing thing is so true. And I remember we were sitting on set one time, and one of the things that's kind of fun in my position is I get to go to, they have, closed rehearsals where they just bring in the cast, the director, and they read it. They read it, talk it through. But I'm always invited to that. So I get to sit and listen to stuff and figure out how I'm going to shoot it and all that. But we had a great thing for the newsroom, and This happened a couple times, but the one I mostly remember was we had a guest star come on, and we had the whole cast, everybody sitting out in the room there talking, reading, and the new cast member goes, "Hey, Aaron, what do you think about this word? I was thinking maybe saying, the or something," and there's silence. E.F. Hutton. What's he going to say? So, and it was just silent for a while, and I'm kind of in the back corner, kind of snickering. This is going to be fun. And he looks at
smoking? Is he smoking?
He wasn't smoking on stage.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But he looks at everything and he kind of does a, no, I like it the way it is. And everybody just left. Okay, great. No problem. Moving on. But all the other regular cast members knew, he wasn't going to go for it. But this person was trying to slip something in, and it was just funny,
So his reputation of being, inflexible on changes is deserved.
I think he made some that made sense to him, but for the most part, it was like, no, this is what I meant when I wrote it. But he was totally cool about it. No, this is kind of how this is how.
I mean, but people would they have demonstrated more reticence in pushing back against him than a regular writer? I mean, people are going to kind of hold their tongue a little bit more.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Totally.
So pivoting into the Texas space, how is it? Because I really identify you now as like a Texas guy, right? And I know that you prefer to work here. A lot of the stuff that you just did the new Taylor Sheridan show up in Fort Worth. There's plenty of production here. We were talking to Heather earlier and about the state of the Texas film community and industry here in Texas. How would you kind of describe where Texas is in the overall film ecosystem today? Do you feel like Texas is well positioned today and currently?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things there. First of all, I think our crews here are fantastic. So if you look at crews, wonderful, great, very experienced, very cool crews, know what they're doing, love to have fun, great people. Incentive-wise now, yes, that's another part of this. Now we have some money to give out. So that's elevated a lot of things. Before that wasn't the case. As you know, people chase incentives. And since there weren't very many, wasn't very beneficial to shoot here, you had to really love it here or love the location for something to come here and shoot. Yeah. So one of the great things about Friday Night Lights was Nan Bernstein, our producer, she found ways. There weren't incentives really then. There were some. But she found ways that saved money because of where we were shooting. Like it was cheaper to shoot in Texas because gas prices were cheaper. So, and that makes sense. You got a huge crew moving around in big trucks. Well, that saves a lot of money. Hotel expenses, cheaper. Electricity cheaper. There were so many other things that you wouldn't think that were production driven that were cheaper. So it made sense. And that was really smart. Yeah. So those things, if you look for those things, shooting in underutilized areas, great. Heather probably touched on that. But yeah, so I think right now, Texas, they're calling it the third coast or something.
Third coast, yeah, we've been saying that for a while.
Yeah, so, it's got everything going for it from infrastructure. Well, we might need more stages, possibly, but, we've got great locations, great crew, got some pretty good money. I think the only thing that might hold it back, and I'm hoping it doesn't, is just some of the political views. Because there are some filmmakers that still don't want to come here because they don't want to support that.
No, I understand.
That's their money. So, but everything else is fantastic, and it should be successful.
Well, you've shot all over the country, all over the world. Really, what's unique about Texas working here?
Well, I found it to be just our crews are almost like family. If you wrap early on a day, people might go, "Hey, let's go have a beer here," and you can all get together and keep that community alive, which is great. I think it's just kind of the work ethic. The show I was up in Fort Worth on was kind of fun. A lot of Friday Night Lights people were up there, so we were just always having fun working. There'd be a lot of jokes told, but we were serious about working. But it was a loose set. It was always fun. And one of the big fun things up there were we were counting how many rattlesnakes they had caught on set for the season. And when I left, they were up to 98 rattlesnakes. And that was in places we'd be standing in the middle of a field. So there was this running joke is, okay, we get 100 rattlesnakes count, we're all going drinking, that whole thing. So those kind of things were really fun. We had a couple of times they were going to go shoot at a location, and they go, oh, we can't go there. Where they found 20 rattlesnakes. So you were not going there. So then, yay, we get a day off or whatever. So
what's the cutoff, by the way? What was too many rattlesnakes?
Well, I guess for that location, 20.
It's 20, okay.
But and they go, oh, we just caught one over here by the grip truck, you'd get there and the safety meeting would be, hey, okay, if you get bit by a rattlesnake, don't panic.
Yeah.
Like, don't panic. What are you talking about? We're in the middle of nowhere here. How do I get to a hospital? They go, don't panic, and we'll take care of you.
Yeah. Why is everybody wearing cowboy boots?
Cowboy boots, gaiters, whatever.
Yeah.
But we had it, which was really kind of fun. I think we had 6 snake wranglers that were all over the location.
6 snake wranglers.
Yeah. I mean, that's a whole crew. Most producers wouldn't even want one. So that was kind of fun to have the snake wranglers there for that. But
did anybody succumb to a snake bite, or were there any?
So far, nobody's gotten a snake bite.
Somebody's got a snake bite. Okay.
But they found some big ones. But those kind of fun things, where a lot of crews come in there, people are like, geez, snakes, that's crazy. I'm not used to that. I don't want to work in that or whatever.
Totally. Well, and I don't want to go down the whole sensational buzzword, but I mean, my God, you can't open a news feed or anything without hearing the word Taylor Sheridan. I mean, he is just all over the goddamn place right now.
He's prolific.
He is, and apparently very good at what he does. And I understood from one of my political friends when they were lobbying for the film incentives, when he hit the floor at the legislature, you had 65-year-old, legislators, giggling like schoolgirls, like it was Taylor Swift, come walking in.
Right.
What's it like working with him?
I've never met him.
Oh, okay. So
I have not met him.
He
has not come to our set.
Oh,
so yeah,
Well, that's okay. Fair enough.
Short answer. But to get back to that whole thing with Taylor and McConaughey and Woody, all those folks, that's what was needed to elevate this incentive. The years passed.
Right.
It was just people going to try to sell it to, these guys and get votes for it.
Yeah.
And it just didn't pay off. And I think there were a number of years, I think even when Heather was the commissioner, we're all like, hey, you got to get some celebs. Our celebs got to go, sell this thing too.
Yeah.
And some did, but it took, I think, Taylor, his success, his storytelling of the West and, cowboys and all that, it was just a perfect fit. So for him to do that's a big thanks, because he did bring all this work here,
right.
And I think it's paying off,
How have you seen the evolution of Texas Cruise? You had touched on, Texas Cruise and having a lot of your Friday Night Lights people up there in Fort Worth for the what is the new show you just wrapped for Sheridan? What's it called?
Well, I think, and I don't know, it's changed a couple times. I think they're going to call it the Dutton Ranch or Dutton Ranch.
Okay.
Offshoot of Yellowstone. I'm not exactly sure, because it started with a different name, so I'm not really sure. So I can't.
But Dutton, it'll be in the Dutton.
I think so, in that world. Yeah.
The Dutton sphere. Yeah. If you would.
Yeah. Right.
You like that, Ken? The Dutton sphere.
There you go.
Yeah.
You should send that to him.
I like it.
How do you see the evolution of
Duttonverse?
The Duttonverse, right?
I like it.
How have you seen the evolution of kind of the crew footprint in Texas over the last the last decade, just from 10 years ago to today?
Well, I mean, as far as their experience or their perseverance? Or?
Yeah, I think just the cohesion, how many new are coming in versus old. Have you noticed anything specific in the evolution of the crew footprint in Texas over the last 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because all the crew that I've been working with, they seem to all be getting older, but I'm not, so I don't understand that. No, they're all great people. I mean, it's the crew that's had to kind of stay around because of families, But a lot of those same crew also have kind of migrated. A lot of them will work in New Mexico, go to Louisiana, but they all still come back here. And what I have noticed is our crews here, there's a lot of new people that are moving here because of the work, and that makes sense. And a lot of them moved up to Dallas. Some have moved to Austin, but no, they all fit in very well and, get the vibe, and they all just love to work and, do good stuff. So it's strong. It's really strong.
Following up on that, actually, when productions are deciding between Texas, versus other states, whether it's New Mexico or, Georgia, all the usual suspects, right? What do you think might be the deciding factor in coming to Texas, or is there a deciding factor, in coming to Texas?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I want to hope that it's the actors that maybe live here that can have a say-so. And not just say, well, we're going to make 10 more bucks on our dollar over here if we go here. So I'm hoping that it's, driven by the actors who want to work in their own state at work, go home at night, who like being there.
Yeah.
Love the vibe, love the restaurants, love the music. We've kind of lost some of the weirdness, I think, but that's how shit goes. So I think that drives a lot of it, but it's still the money, if you're up against, you have $500,000 and you're going to spend $500,000 here, maybe 600, but you go over here and you're going to get $1 million. Well, that's just driven by money.
What part of production do you feel is going to be, kind of standardized in the next 5 years or in the short term? What's your take on kind of where we are versus where we're going in the next 5 years? Because I've got a few questions in this space, and I think you know where it's leading. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think you still need real people telling real stories, maybe with real actors. I don't know about that part yet.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. I mean, I don't know. I still think you need hands-on from people.
Yeah.
Now, the things that are kind of changing that I see have to do with a lot of, this is kind of weird, but every single show I do, there's always a big discussion about car work, shooting in cars. Because everybody writes, they're going down the road. We can cover somebody driving down the road. We can cover 8 pages while they're driving, So the writers write that stuff, great. But then productions have to shoot it. And then everybody's got an opinion at how they want to shoot it. Director says, no, I want to get on a tow vehicle and I want to mount cameras and I'm going to go through the road because it looks looks more real. And then you got the production manager says, no, I don't want to go out in the road there. Let's go get a green screen and just put them over there and fake it, do poor man's. And then you got somebody goes, let's go to the volume wall over here because that's really cool and that's going to save us time and it's going to look better. So I always just listen to all this stuff because you have literally that's the most discussions you ever have, in my opinion, in my experience, when shooting network TV or episodic TV when it comes to driving. Because it comes up in every script and everybody's got a certain way they want to do it.
Is there a dominant winner of those 3 ecosystems? Is there one that gets chosen more often than another?
Well, here's how I approach it. First of all, is it night? If it's night, poor man's. It's easy to do. That's fun. We can
volume wall or green screen?
No, just poor man's, black in the back, and shoot a little bit tighter. But see, I got to preface it. It says, well, this scene's 1 page. Can we do it tight in a couple angles?
Yeah.
The director says, I can probably get away with it. Okay, well let's just cheat that. Let's just do that. Poor man's, no green screen, anything. Keep it tight. It's gonna be great. Oh yeah, great. Well, no, I want to see outside. And a director might say, what I'll say is, okay, well, we all hate getting on an insert car. We all hate towed rigs, but that's going to be the quickest way to do it because then you don't have to go shoot plates. Because when you start bringing up plates, well, do you have a plate for that road? No, we figure we can go get some. Okay, well, go to myplates.com, see if there's anything you like. And there is a myplates.com. So everybody goes on there and go, that's kind of cool. We like that. Oh, that's kind of expensive. So now you got to talk a second unit or an insert crew going out and shooting that. So then you can say, oh, volume wall. Okay, great. Well, do you have plates for that? No. Well, you got to go shoot that first because that's going to bake that in later. So now they're like, well, we still got to go out and shoot. So, I mean, it's really funny. It happens every single show I do.
I think it's funny because I had actually texted you a couple of months ago. I had seen that show that you did, you referenced earlier up in Canada. And I don't know, it was like Hulu or Amazon or something. It was called Smoke.
Yeah, that was an Apple show.
Yeah, Apple show. You've been doing a lot of Apple shows.
Yeah.
And really good stuff too, by the way, which I would just anecdotally like to ask if you have a preferred streamer that you like working with, because you've done them all, Netflix, Amazon, you know. Do you have a preferred streamer that you like working with as far as fluidity?
I think for me, in my experience, people like HBO, Apple, maybe Netflix a little bit. Some of those streamers give you more freedom. Yeah. You don't get as many notes from, NBC, CBS, some of those networks. You get a lot of notes from those folks. Oh, I got to see their eyes. You need more light here, or you need a wide shot, or you need this, whatever. But yeah, no, I mean, I take notes, and that's actually one of the things I've learned. If I can share anything with people, I've learned to take notes in this business, because there are some people that won't. So I learned quite a while ago is any notes somebody's given you, take them. And if you don't hear anything, if you want to inquire, great. But no news sometimes is good news, because you'll usually know if they want to change something.
Absolutely.
So I guess part of that whole thing is just you got to lose the ego and just say, hey, yeah, let's do that. That makes sense. It's your show. I want to do that. Let's make sure you get that, because that's important.
And you find like the HBO and the Apple people to be maybe giving you a little bit more runway to
Absolutely. Yeah. I think they respect the filmmakers a little bit more. And it's not that they don't respect the other ones, but those shows are just, like there are shows that are built the way they're built, like a lot of the Dick Wolf shows, the CISs or whatever they are. Those are a certain way.
Yeah.
They're not going to really venture out creatively, visually. So.
Well, I mean, in addition to being your friend, I'm a fan kind of what you do, and I follow your projects, and I really have enjoyed how you craft certain things, like Palm Royale. That's a beautiful show, man. I mean, it is really fantastic. But on Smoke, I had watched one of the episodes that you shot, and there is I had texted you about this. There's this crash scene in there. I've seen 1,000 crash. You know what I'm talking about, man.
Yes.
There's this crash scene in there that is so gosh darn good. I mean, it was. I was like, man, I shouldn't fanboy and be like, hey, man, how'd you do this, or would you? But I sent you a text like, that's a fucking great shot, man.
It was practical.
That was badass, because you were talking about the driving scenes and, are we going to do it at volume wall, tow truck? It's like, I looked at that and I thought they had to do that in VFX, because it's too real to not be unreal.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting sequence, because it does start with a lot of him driving and singing, which I believe we did do a green screen. Did we do it? We might have done a volume wall. I don't remember. Maybe we can, when he's driving, we did some green screen or volume wall. I couldn't remember.
Well, the way you stitched it together was flawless, because I couldn't tell. It all looks practical to me.
Right. Well, that's the tricky part of this, because you can start a driving scene, green screen, volume wall, however you want to do it. But if a character stops, then you can't do that. You've got to be at the location, because you want an exterior shot and all that. And then he drives, and we. What did we do? We stitched a couple things together, but when we got to that crash scene, that was a whole nother, meeting after meeting after meeting. We'd always talking about that shot, because it was going to happen later in the sequence. So, of course, the stunt guys are like, oh, the director's like, well, no, how it started was the writer, great guy, said, well, I don't want this gigantic thing. I just want it to, T-bone, it rolls a couple times. It's got to look real, right? So he lays down his thing, and then, of course, the stunt guys are, well, maybe we do a ramp on that. We can get it up in the air a little bit. And then everybody's like going, if you do a ramp, that thing's going to fly over there. And I certainly know when you start talking ramps and ratchets, what's going to happen. They say, okay, well, the guy's going to come out the door. He's going to ratchet. He's going to land here. I already know that fucker's landing over there. So I'll go over there, and sure enough, because they can't get that right. They just never get it right. So this sequence, the car, they get this ramp. They build this ramp. It goes up, and the guy hauls ass. And long story short, I knew it was going to fly. So I mounted about 4 of these cameras in places on the car. Mirrors, phones. Yeah, because an Apple show, I said, guys, send me 4 of your cameras. So your phones.
Fantastic.
So I got little hard drives, hooked them to them, and then I'd put some in a mirror. I'd take a mirror out, do a hole in there so you could see that angle. I put one on the back by the license plate so you could see it going away. I put one, I think, somewhere in the car looking up, and then I put a bunch of other, what did we use? I think the FX3s. We mounted those in different places. And I specifically also mounted one kind of because they wanted a shot where it was a surprise and the car is supposed to be on the side and you see the car hit him.
It's a surprise.
Yeah, it's a surprise.
Yeah.
But it wasn't working out, so we did have to green screen that a bit. We shot another plate for that coming. But I put a camera in there to kind of catch that angle in the back, so if you really wanted to cut to it, you could. I mounted it there, and I made sure the stunts guys were okay with it. We bolted everything in. So I think I had 8 cameras all around. I had one in the crane. I had one mounted where it was supposed to land. But long story short, you saw what we saw.
Yeah.
That thing shot up and just went through like a kite.
Right.
And we're all like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Because it wasn't just a hit. Because the big question was, even if you hit it in here, it's not going to fly that far. It's going to spin around.
Right.
But so they wanted the ramp. Thing hits, that thing shoots up. It goes half a block over and goes out of a few camera angles because it was so far.
And that was one take. I mean, you had
it was only one take.
Yeah, one take.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can find that episode I'm referencing and cut it in because it is really, really worth seeing because
it was fun.
We've all seen 1,000 car crashes, and as film types, we know it's coming. Right. And so it's like the horror thing where, the negative space before the thing, it's anticipatory. You know what's happening. Yeah. This thing, I didn't see it coming. And I think part of it was the misdirection with the singing. Because, how he's singing and it was just like, and he's going to do a thing and, whatever. Anyway, but when it came, it was like, holy shit. Yeah. I backed it up and watched it 2 or 3 times. And Laura and I were both watching it. We're like, Todd's a genius.
No, I mean, that was just preparation and a great team. But that was fun. That show, we had a great, Jim McKay, is a friend of my director. He's the kind of guy, let's try this. And I had a number of shots that I really had fun doing. One of them was, we had a character and he plays kind of the bad guy, the lonely guy. And he's at a amusement park. And he's looking up, his favorite when he was a kid, Ferris wheel. So we had this great shot. I said, well, let's start as low as we can get on our crane on the guy. He was holding a 6-pack. We go off the beer. We come up him. We tag this thing, and then we come back down, tilt down, and he's looking right up at it. And it was such a great shot, but it's a very tricky shot because you got to move everything. It's, you got 3 people operating certain things, and you got to make it right. And we finally got it. It was such a cool shot because the way it moved up and then it kind of came around, it was just an interesting feeling. But the point I was trying to make is they, with Jim and Apple, they'd let you do these kind of things. Yeah. You can have fun doing them. And you can come up with really creative ways to do it and use the camera, and that was a lot of fun.
To that point, that's a perfect segue to the next question is, what aspects of production do you think are going to remain stubbornly, human and resistant to automation and change? And we're building toward the eventual topic, which it's like I told Heather, we can spend a whole hour talking about AI. Yeah. And I know where you come down on that. I tend to share the thing. Ken Miller, Monty Fisher, you guys are all, DPs, you understand, that's an existential threat, and we've had that discussion. But what aspects of production do you think are going to, remain stubbornly, human before we touch on AI?
Well, I think most just physical production, being on set, moving cameras, following people. That I think, if you want to be efficient and quick, that's not going to change very quickly. You can put a camera on a pedestal, but somebody's got to follow around and make the moves or, choreograph the blocking, execute the blocking so it looks real. I mean, efficiently. Now, that was one of the first things that I bumped on when I saw these guys doing the volume wall stuff. Mm-hmm. I went in locally, and all I saw were people on the iPads, and they're doing this, looking at it. I go, well, there wasn't any production going on. They were just figuring everything out. So you got to figure out all this stuff to make it work, to tell the computer to do it. Now, there's certain things it's going to be positive on, but I don't think physical production, going onto a set, maybe writing, maybe some things like that. But for the most part, if you're trying to capture a moment in a scene, I don't know how you do that. I don't know how AI does that using the tools that we use, if that makes sense.
It does.
I don't think you're going to have a robot, an AI robot carrying a camera, trying to block something and go from this to that. I mean, I don't know. I doubt it. Maybe eventually, but right now I see AI, if you want to jump right into that bag, I think it's great for stuff like medical uses and figuring out stuff like that, maybe helping write some scripts or figuring out storylines. I don't know. But as far as physical production, I don't think so.
Well, one of the questions that I had was about virtual production and the evolution of virtual production, which kind of gets into that gray area with AI. I consider virtual production traditional VFX and that kind of stuff. Where do you think it's genuinely useful versus compared to the hype versus the hype?
Well, I think it'd be great in places if you want to have a story and you can't go to certain locations, cover certain things. That makes sense. Yeah. And it's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful gaming. You can do all kinds of crazy gaming stuff with it. But I don't know, it doesn't seem that efficient. I mean, it's not, maybe it is. Maybe once you get everything laid out, all your plates, everything worked out, all your angles, all that technical stuff that you got to deal with, then maybe you can, keep some momentum. But from what I saw, there was just a lot of planning. Then you'd execute, then you'd plan again. And it just, it just didn't it was fine, but it didn't have the same flavor,
I quite like this question. If you could redesign one part of the production pipeline for sanity and sustainability, what would you change?
Whoa.
I know, and that, when I put this question down, I thought McMullen's going to either love or hate this question. He'll be like, pass, punt, skip that one, or he's going to really want to lay into it.
Well, it's funny because I could lay into it, but I'm going to dig so deep, I'm going to get myself into trouble. And what I mean by that, everything's got to be common sense.
Yeah.
In a way, it's got to be common sense to a certain point. And I think that some places we're at now, a lot of it starts at the top. Mm-hmm. And I think wherever that top is, if it's studio, whether, I think a lot of those people just look at things quite differently. They look at money, they look at, certain things that don't apply to storytelling, because that's just not what they do. So I think sometimes that gets filtered down onto productions, and then you're like, there's no heart and soul into this production, this story. So, and, I'm wrong a lot of times, but I also have seen where you're shooting something going, who's going to watch this? Who's this for? And it's good that they do it. Everybody needs programming, but I think just to answer that question, I don't know, on set, I think that's just the way it is. Yeah. You need people that can drive that set all the way, even from directors who come in who can keep the momentum going and not freeze and go, I want to do this, or I need to go do that again, or I'm going to overdo this, or, I want to, do 50 takes on something when you don't need to, so there's a lot of components to that, but, that's kind of my experience with it.
So the 500-pound gorilla in the room is AI. What's your opinion on AI, not writ large, not AI as an ecosystem, but as it directly threatens your livelihood, your lifestyle? I'm talking about AI-generated video content, right? talk about that. And I understand that this is it's so huge. I mean,
Right.
the thing is, Todd, it's ubiquitous, as you know. You can't. It's almost as pervasive as Taylor Sheridan. It's just AI, and we all agree on the benefits of it in the medical space, the legal space, writing, R&D, research, all that. Heather and I talked about it briefly, and we were able to keep it, in like the 10-minute zone. But with you, with Montgomery Fisher, with Ken Miller, with myself to a degree, it poses more of an esoteric, threat. But where do you come down on it? What do you like? What don't you like? What should people be thinking about? What are you thinking about as it becomes, more pervasive into the production pipeline?
Well, I mean, it's like, trying to shovel quicksilver with a pitchfork. You just can't get it. It's not going to land. So the way I look at it is I have to apply it to my life however I want to use it. I'm not looking at it globally because it doesn't affect me globally. I can't look at it that way. So I only first of all, I don't completely understand all of it, and I'll admit that. But the things that I have played around with that are not so much production-wise, but like I went in there the other day to chat GPT, I guess it is. I said, can you design me a retirement plan that lets me go on vacation, lets me have this car, lets me have all my guitars, lets me be healthy, lets me do this? I literally laid out, I gave it everything, and it goes, oh, this is great. Here's a perfect plan for you. And so it kind of laid out a retirement plan for me. So that's kind of how I use AI. It had nothing to do with production, but the point I'm trying to make is I'm not trying to use it for production, so I don't know what's going to happen with it. So it affects each person's, I think, job classification within production, how it's going to affect them. Maybe it affects a production designer because now AI can design a whole set, design a show, design all that, but you still have to have somebody there to input what they want it to be.
Do you feel directly threatened?
Hell no. No way. No.
Hear that?
No.
No reason to be directly threatened.
No.
We sit on different places on the food chain.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I told these guys, I'm like, look, we're going to be talking to Todd McMullen, and he would, as at the top of our food chain, he would be uniquely positioned to give us his opinion on.
For you, Ken, I'm interested. What parts of it do you feel are invading, in production?
We're at the point now where people have become accustomed to seeing representations on screen that aren't necessarily real. TikTok and Instagram and things like that. They see these things and it's kind of normalized for them.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
Where that is kind of the space that I have to work in. I don't have access to opportunities to go shoot network television or movies or things of that nature. So I have to look at where people who need the stuff that I make are going to decide that their money is best spent.
Interesting.
I lean into the idea that a real person is going to be able to connect with real people better. But that's just from my experience. I don't interact with these platforms. I don't know what people who consume this stuff, what their tolerance is for things that are artificially generated.
Gotcha.
So for me, it's more of an existential threat because when people come to me, they're already sort of, they're already looking, especially now, for the best bang for their buck. And if someone can sit in front of a screen and type in a prompt right in front of them and pull something up, where my entire mechanism requires a team to pull something together to demonstrate to them, I'm automatically at a disadvantage just even at the pitch stage, not to mention what they're going to save, quote in quotes, from executing something as a artificial agent versus me trying to pull all these resources together for them.
Yeah, no, that's completely valid. I can see that point of view for sure because we're just getting slammed with all that stuff. And yeah, for that, for sure. So, but I wonder though, if people are going to, when are they going to know it's AI or even care to know it's AI and not want AI? I mean, that's really the question.
Right.
What's the cycle? How is it going to land? How far does it go? It's almost like, not the same, but kind of is, when incentives came up. Florida's one of the first states, so everybody had to go to Florida. Well, after a couple of years, nobody went to Florida, and they went to New Mexico. So it's kind of like travels. That's maybe a different thing, but the point is where do people go? Oh, I'm not digging that, and let's go back to, custom made stuff.
And it also kind of depends on how long these platforms and ways of communication are going to remain viable.
Right.
There's a non-zero possibility that the generation that's coming up now may not want to have anything to do with the platforms. I mean, we've seen massive shifts in the way that generations interact with online content and the content that's being served to them. So these platforms may not even exist anymore. It may turn into something where only we maybe go back to TV being the dominant force. It's not out of the realm of possibility. So there's a lot of variables to it. If you look at where we are right now and the acceleration curve that's being applied to these things, these are the threats that as they render themselves. But it's entirely valid to think in a year, 2 years, 5 years, the platforms surrounding these threats don't even really have any traction left.
Right. And we'll be having a whole podcast on the AI space.
But somebody will still have to input that information. So maybe you have to change your job title to, I'm still a visual creative, but I'm now going to input what you want instead of shoot. I'm going to, deliver that message. Sort of.
What would make you more excited to base more of your work, here in Texas? What is it that would make you, really excited to continue to base, more work out of here?
Well, I hate to change the subject.
Not at all.
But it has nothing to do with production. It has to do with climate. It's freaking hot in the summer. So who wants to be here?
Right.
I mean, even doing that show up in Fort Worth, it's brutal. I mean, that's a whole nother way to think.
Wow. Yeah.
You're out there and it's 120 and humidity is 150. I mean, that's nuts. So for me, and by the way, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, I'm getting to the end of my career. I've had fun. I've done a lot of great stuff. And, now I want to move on and do other things. And drinking certainly is totally viable. So, but anyway, playing music, whatever. But the point is, it's a great place to work. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm trying to draw on stories. I'd like to do stories that kind of take advantage of this landscape. Whether it's a music story, whether it's about a small town, whether it's about some crazy story, but I like the landscape of the South and, not so much the cowboy thing's all great and everything, but I'd love to do something in San Antonio. I'd love to find something cool in San Antonio that just, lives on that vibe. And so, those kind of things excite me. I think that's really cool, so.
Well, that's perfect because my last chapter is your future. And it was like, what kind of stories do you feel drawn to right now, either as a director or DP, storyteller? And you just kind of sort of answered that, maybe something in San Antonio, but Texas centric. What's a project that you haven't made that feels, maybe inevitable to you that you're going to get to touch?
Good question. Well, one thing I'm kind of interested in, and I hope I get it, there's a show, I like, autobiographies and stories about people. There's, I think, Sylvester Stallone's company's doing a show called Binion, and it's about the casino in the Horseshoe.
Yeah.
And that kind of story just really plays on me, not only visually, but there's some really wacky stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So I like that stuff that you can't make up, and that certainly would be a story like that. So, that those kind of things. And I know we had started writing a story called Humbucker, which is kind of a fun play on almost like a adventure chase scene where, a guy's looking for a specific guitar that, he thinks, Robert Johnson used at the Crossroads or whatever. But it's a fun story, and you could easily do it here on a really fun level and not try to make it huge and, what it shouldn't be. But those kind of things are fun because it would be great to shoot it in Austin.
Yeah.
There's some fun locations, there's some great musicians, and there's a lot of really fun puns and, humor to that you can bring to it.
Yeah.
So
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, that'd be a fun
love
one.
to be able to do that one. If you could choose, just one challenge out there to take on next, carte blanche, what would it be? Somebody just opens it up and says, hey, man, what do you want to do? What is it?
Oh, like a production story-wise?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you, Gabo Diodato. He wrote that question.
Hey, that's a good one, Gabo.
That's a good question.
Well, I tell you, one of the other things I'm really interested in is also like out in Van Horn area, Marfa area, West Texas. I think there's a lot of really magical, mystical stories and shit that just could go down. So there's one I've kind of. It was a true story about a border patrolman who they found dead in a culvert. And, as soon as they found him dead, they're like, everybody's, the illegals and everybody, they killed him, the cartels and all. Well, it wasn't that. And to this day, they still don't know what it is. But they believe the guy he was responding to something, and this was on the 10 freeway, and they believe he literally walked across and fell off a culvert and fell wrong and killed him. Now, what's interesting, though, is his partner did the same thing, and he has amnesia, and they don't know. This is a true story. So I was attracted to the story. I started writing a episodic about it, because there were so many things that were happening that weren't true, but people were trying to make them true, that could have gone any direction. And I find that fascinating, trying to tell a story that nobody knows the answer. But all the things that could lead up and tell you about life in that story are valid and cool. And most people don't even know about them. So that's a story I'd like to get going. I'm trying to get that worked up because I think that is a cool story, and it can expose a lot of things about a lot of things. It's a pretty deep one.
Is there a rattlesnake?
Oh, totally. There's also a monkey riding a camel.
What is your advice to somebody who's maybe getting started in the industry now? How would you guide them?
Good question. I would say you just have to be patient. You absolutely have to be persistent. You have to be flexible. But the biggest one is patience. And that's one that's taken me 35 years to learn, at least in this business. Because there's still days I go on to set and I'm like hounding the AD, like, what are we waiting for? Why aren't we shooting?
Right.
And that's not my job, but they like that I do that because it keeps the momentum. And then they'll snap up, oh, yeah, right, ready, rolling. So I'm just somebody, for me, I gotta land my patience sometimes, because I like to be very efficient. I like to go in. If I go in at 8, I'd like to be home as soon as I can. I'm not there because I'm not at camp. I don't want to be there all night just to make money or whatever. I want to do the job, get the hell out of there, and go enjoy my life. So I would say to people, just be persistent and be creative and find ways to do what you want to do. And if you want to be a filmmaker and a director, you find a story, and whatever you do, go shoot that story. Don't wait for anybody to give you the money. Do not wait for anything other than you trying to get that. If you have to do it with an iPhone, non-actors, just do it, because it's about the process and it'll eventually pay off. But there's no free rides anymore because there's just too many people. There's too many people, too few jobs. So, I had somebody come up to me, they say, hey, I really want to be, a camera assistant. I said, well, have you gone to Panavision and talked to anybody? No, what's Panavision? I'm like, well, you need to know these things and get to know these people, know what it is. And they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And I think they went, and I said, I'll help you. Go talk to them. Go hang out. If you want to be something, you have to go look at it, learn it, see if you really like it, because nobody's going to give it to you, just because you came out of college. You're not, that. Or if you want to be a specific type of person, whether you want to be a camera assistant, even an operator, a DP, go find those people that are kind of doing that at the same level as you. Like if you're going to school, somebody, find a director if you want to be DP, and work with them. And if they're doing cool stuff, it's going to pay off because they're going to get recognized by doing something. And then next thing you know, they got a 4-picture deal, and you're, the next great thing. So it's just you have to be patient. It's hard for people because you got to make money, and nothing comes for free. But I did a lot of work for free for years and years, and it paid off.
As we wrap up, what's the role of music in your future? What do you got going on the music front?
Just keep playing it, having fun with doing it, and hopefully recording stuff, and knowing that it's more therapy than it is for any other goal of achieving anything other than just fun to put music and words together.
It's true. Well, you are uniquely positioned to be able to play that for people that might be worth having a listen.
Well, I'm also getting so old, I think I'm getting arthritis. So I got to strum or else my hand gets sore, so it's a bit of therapy.
That's fucking funny.
Hilarious.
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
You had mentioned to me a couple, years back that you wouldn't mind doing more commercials.
Right.
Let's just briefly talk about that. Why a lot of people, I'm sure our audience would want to know, why would an accomplished cinematographer want to direct commercials?
Well, it's a great question, but I think for me, it's just doing something different, applying what I already know visually. Yeah. Commercials are very visual. They can be.
Yeah.
But they're also, you're trying to get a message across in a short amount of time. So I have experience, visually doing that and just simple storytelling. What's the emotional impact of this 30 seconds or this 60 seconds? How can you get people to look at that, that campaign and go, oh, that's kind of cool. One that's, I love these Budweiser ones. The one that just is hitting me really hard now, and you guys have probably already seen it. It's the little chick who ends up being an eagle, falls out of the nest or something.
So
then
good.
the horse comes and then the music builds up and it's Leonard Skinnerd.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that horse is coming at you, and then that eagle flies over you. Wow, that's powerful. That's fun. I mean, that's visually cool, and emotionally it grabs.
It was so good.
So good. So for me, it's just applying those into something that I don't do a lot of, but I would like to do because I feel I could just float into that and help people get that message across. So that's why I'm attracted to it. And also, I don't have to be on set for 9 months. I can come in and do a commercial in 5 or 10 days or whatever it is, a couple of days, and, achieve that and then go on to doing whatever else I do. So, that's appealing to me. And there's a lot of people in our business, even big, movie directors that do a lot of commercials because they know how to get that message across,
Well, and hopefully being in the ProFor ecosystem, that can happen this year where we can get some opportunities to do some.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Do some cool stuff. I think that'd be
well, and it's always been, I've never been around, like something comes up and I'm gone doing something else. Yeah. So, I'm trying to make sure I can try to stick around a little bit more.
Well, maybe in the timing that you had mentioned, I wouldn't say, and I can't really hold forth on your career, but you were saying that you're kind of approaching maybe the end of your career by, design or circumstance or age.
Selective
process. Yeah, whatever that is, where you're able to cherry pick, projects. Hopefully that will allow you to continue to do projects that you want to do and stay homebound.
Well, and that's the goal, because I'm also trying to use all the credits and people that I've, worked with and met. At some point, I'm going to ask them for a favor, but I'm going to make sure that favor is for something that's going to, pay off. But it is funny. It's kind of selective now, and I get accused of this a lot. I'll look at a script and I'll read it and go, night. No, not for me. Because who wants to work at night anymore? You know what I mean? It's pretty fun.
I saw that one coming.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
No, absolutely. This has been a great conversation, and I appreciate you making some time to do this. Hopefully, this coming year, we're going to find some good opportunities to continue to work together. Yeah. And I'll be sure to read you in when we have our AI discussion, and you can come over and be part of the.
I need to learn more about it for sure, obviously.
Well, so, me too. Ken had called me last night, just prepping for today briefly, and I was actually entertaining my neighbor from next door, and I ended up having an hour-long conversation with him, and he was like, "Yeah, you've been ignoring your guest for too long. Get back there." I was on the phone for a fucking hour, because we were going down the rabbit hole of AI and all this stuff. And he threw a concept at me, a very high-minded concept at me that I was like, oh, great. Thanks for keeping me up for half the night, even thinking about that.
Right.
It's really good stuff. So I'll read you in on what that looks like. But Signing off here from the Budio, I'm Brian Watkins. Happy to be joined by Todd McMullen, and we'll see you next time. Hope you found this informative, educational, and entertaining.